Imagine a place that was supposed to be the gateway to adventure. To a 3-year-old girl, it was a castle of possibilities. But what if, in the blink of an eye, that castle turned into a trap? All she knew was the freedom to run, but the rough hands of a stranger pulled her into a different reality. Her grandmother emerged as a warrior, and the girl, with a courage that resonates to this day, spoke a truth that set her free. This is her first memory, the moment she learned that the world doesn't always see you as you are. Years passed, and innocence gave way to heightened vigilance. At 10, the airport no longer held imaginary monsters, but real men in gray suits. He didn't need to speak. His repeated presence was the very signature of danger. Each reappearance was a silent blow to her stomach. Her mother, with a fierce instinct, snatched her away with the precision of an emergency responder. On that connection, a terrifying game of chess ensued. The lesson was hammered home. Seeing danger is useless if no one is watching to protect you. Adolescence brought a new burden, the responsibility of being someone else's shield. At 15, she was the one guiding her younger sister, whose sweetness was a vulnerability. Danger appeared with a smile and a tennis racket, a stealthy approach that exploited a common language. Her blood ran cold, not from her own fear, but from the primal instinct to protect. The lesson that day was a cruel one. Predators don't use weapons, they use opportunities. And the only defense is a well-told lie. At 18, the transformation was complete. She was no longer the frightened prey, but the alert guardian. When a man with sunken eyes sat insistently near them, fear was replaced by icy fury. Her sister's message confirming her suspicions was the trigger. Something ancient awakened, a force that lifted her not to flee, but to face. She didn't call for security, became the security guard. That night, it was her eyes that scanned the lobby, tireless, assuming the role her mother once held. Today, she walks through airports with a purpose that transcends travel. Every sound, every smell, is a trigger that connects her to a past of vulnerability and survival. She observes the patterns no one else sees: the lonely child, the watched teenager, the man with an intrusive gaze, and she acts, not out of recognition but out of a deep understanding. Security is not the absence of evil, but the active presence of care. She became the gaze that once saved her, completing the cycle and proving that even in the darkness, there is always someone willing to stand between you and danger. This is the story of how fear forges a protector, and she won't let you leave until you see how it ends. The weight of the gaze. She was 3 years old when the world lost its transparency. That day, the airport was a castle of endless corridors and voices echoing like in magical caves. She ran ahead of her grandmother, her short hair blowing in the wind, her sneakers tapping on the concrete steps. She didn't know that, to some, she looked like a boy. She only knew that everything was hers to explore. It was on the 3rd step of a short staircase that his hands grabbed her. Large, rough, smelling of stale sweat and something chemical. His eyes didn't blink. For a moment she stood still, as if fear had turned her into a statue. But then she heard her grandmother's footsteps, descending like thunder, her bag spinning in the air like a shield. "Put her down," her grandmother shouted. And the girl, in the firmest voice a 3-year-old could muster, declared, "I'm not a boy, and you're not my father." He released her as if he'd burned her fingers. He disappeared among the people and she never saw him again. But she never ran alone again. At 10, the airport was no longer a castle, it was a maze where monsters wore suits. They were in Nashville, on their way to Austin. Her mother smoked in the glass cigar room while she browsed thrillers in the bookstore. That's when the man in black shoes and a gray suit appeared. He didn't speak, he just reappeared. In the mystery section, in the children's aisle, near the checkout, closer and closer. Her stomach churned, her fingers trembled as she typed, "I want this book." Her mother was already on her way before she even finished the message. She had seen everything. She knew. She said nothing, just pulled her by the elbow with a calm strength, like someone saving someone from an invisible fire. During the connection, he followed them to the gate. He sat near their bags. Her mother positioned her next to the boarding gate, as if she were a fragile relic. When he disappeared behind security guards who finally believed her, the girl took her first breath in hours. It was then that she understood. Seeing isn't enough. Someone needs to be watching over you. At 15, she traveled with her younger sister to Moscow. Her sister was too sweet, too trusting. She no longer trusted anything. In the connecting lounge of an airport in the United States, a man with a tennis racket, that's all, nothing more, approached, smiling. He asked in Russian if they spoke Russian. Her sister answered yes with an innocent smile. He smiled even wider. He said that if they had any problems in Moscow, they could go with him. Her blood ran cold. "No, thank you," she replied firmly, gripping her sister's arm tightly enough to leave a mark. He left. Then he fell asleep. Then he was taken away by security guards. But the smile remained, and with it, the certainty. Danger doesn't need weapons, only opportunity. That night, he taught his sister to lie. Say you don't speak Russian. Tell him your father is there. Tell him anything but the truth. Her sister cried. She cried later, alone in the airplane bathroom. At 18, she returned to the same kind of airport, small, seemingly safe, with her sister again. Her sister was 16 now, tall, confident, and laughed too loudly. She loved her for it. She feared for it. That's when the thin, sunken-eyed man sat directly in front of them, even though there were 100 empty seats. He laughed at the wrong things. He pointed at his cell phone. Her sister texted him, "He's taking a picture of me." In that instant, something ancient awakened in her. It wasn't fear. It was fury. She got up, looked for him, but he was already gone. She told her mother over the phone. She told her to call security. But she didn't, because for once, she was the guardian. She stood until boarding, scanning the lobby with her eyes, just as her mother had done for her. Her sister slept on the plane. She didn't close her eyes. And then came the day when everything converged. She was in a mid-sized airport, waiting for a delayed flight. The smell of disinfectant transported her back to that bathroom in Denver, where a man had emerged from a women's stall at midnight. The sound of a suitcase falling reminded her of the gunshots she'd heard when she was 6, her grandmother's body covering her, the taste of blood in the air, the pregnant woman motionless on the floor. In that moment, she saw it all again. A teenage girl being filmed by a man in a cap. A little boy running alone toward the escalator. A man in a wet coat watching girls near the gate. These weren't coincidences. It was the same pattern, repeated on different scales. She stood up. First, she went to the teenage girl and said softly, "Your father is calling you at the magazine store." The girl understood. She left quickly. Then she took the little boy by the hand and led him to the information desk. "He got lost," she lied. Finally, she stood near the man in the coat, staring at him until he looked away and walked away. No one thanked her. No one noticed, but she knew. Today she is 24. She passes through airports frequently, not as an employee, but as someone who has never stopped going through them. She always observes, always stands close to those who seem lost, scared, alone. She has never felt safe in an airport again. But she has learned that safety is not the absence of danger. It is the presence of care. Sometimes, passing through a short staircase, she smells old sweat. Other times, hearing a fake laugh, her body stiffens. These are sensory scars, memories that never fade. But when she sees a grandmother holding her granddaughter's hand tightly, or an older sister standing between her younger sister and the world, she smiles. Because she knows the cycle continues. And that, even in places where chaos can erupt in 20 seconds, there's always someone willing to lie down on the ground to cover another person with their own body. This is the only miracle she still believes in. And this cycle of care is the only thing that truly protects us. But this story isn't just mine. It's about every woman who learned to walk alertly, every child who was protected by a watchful eye. It's about the places that should be safe but aren't always. And now I want to hear from you. Did this story resonate with you? Have you ever felt this weight of the gaze, whether being watched or being the one watching? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might make someone feel less alone. And do for someone today what my grandmother did for me. Share this video. Share it with your children, siblings, parents, and friends. Because safety isn't a gift we keep, it's a seed we plant. Help spread this gaze. I don't know your name, but if you're watching, know that someone is watching. And from today onwards, that someone could also be you. Thanks for watching.